Hi, I am Rob, and welcome to Order 42, and today we have Grindhead Jim.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Again.
we're just gonna be hanging out, talking movies. There's a couple of big news items that have kind of happened this week in the movie industry world thing that I want to talk about. But first, Jim, how are you doing, buddy?
Good, man. I'm doing real good. Life's pretty nice. Work schedule changed a bit, so I had some time off, and some new Destiny stuff came out, which is always fun for me. And I got food, I got beer. I've had downtime, been hanging out with you.
Our pets' heads are falling off. Oh,
yeah. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. Yeah, no, but things are good. I'm in a good mood.
Awesome. And before we really get into the topics, I just want to say that, again, Red Pyramid Head the other day just gifted subs. I really appreciate that. I just think that's awesome. I didn't even I kind of talked about it a little bit, but I didn't, to me, the goal of this show isn't so much that kind of stuff. I'm more about, just the fact that you guys are here, if you guys watch, I just appreciate that. I think it's fun. So I really appreciate that. And of course, in the last 2 days, because of, me going into Jay's stream and then going into Billy's stream last night, I got a couple of follows out of that. So thank you to Gabriel Franco, 95. Thank you to Prince Mallow Plays. Yeah, they followed. And that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
And I just think, again, considering that
at the end of the day, like, people don't ever have to do that. So when people take the time to support it, it's really it's humbling, and it is something that is appreciated. So keep up with the support, guys. It is appreciated.
It is.
It's not even my show, and I appreciate it.
There you go. He said it. And I pointed the wrong way because he's over there, actually. At least on my screen.
I guess we'll put you there.
Huh? Oh, am I over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. It doesn't matter.
Over here. So you're in Peanuts direction. Peanuts, right. Not kitchen. I got it. Peanuts over here, kitchen over here.
Yes. So if I look over here, I'm kind of looking at you. Not really.
This isn't creepy.
But anyway. So guys, wouldn't that be weird? It's like,
it would be
like, it doesn't really work well.
No, not with the framing I have right now. No.
Anyway, yeah, we don't need to do any of that, I guess. But but yeah, today I had mentioned on the previous show that I was going to have Rudy on, the first assistant director of the Game Chasers movie, and he's worked in the industry for a long time. He's not going to be on until Saturday, so we are going to have a Saturday show with Rudy, and then yeah, things will progress from there.
That sounds like a plan to me, man.
Well, okay.
I roll the punches.
The first thing that I wanted to bring up, and talk to you about and get your opinion, because
sure.
There's a jet flying over.
I can barely hear it.
Oh. Yeah, it was like really loud. But anyway, Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yes.
What do you think?
I've been following this since it was first announced that they were actually finally going to do it. I haven't seen the trailer yet because I don't really watch trailers that much. But the only time I really watch trailers is like when I'm in the movie theater and I'm forced to, and then I get mad and grumpy about it because I don't want to see it. Because people in marketing these days, they give away the whole damn movie. And although I will say the one exception to that is the Game Chasers trailer does not really give away too much of the film. Genuinely.
You actually made me think of something that I'm going to change right here on the fly. Huh.
Okay, cool.
No, it's just the current, what do you call it? The current show
accoutrement.
command and Nightbot. I'm gonna change
Gotcha.
that.
But
Just
I think that it shows a lot of humanity from Keanu Reeves to come back and do this role because he doesn't owe anybody anything, and it shows that he really loves Alex Winter and he really loves like the franchise that really gave him a shot. You know what I mean? Like that was one of his first things that he did that really got some traction. Um, I think those characters are great. I think those movies are great, and with Alex being the one that's been championing it for so long and them looking for the right script, for them to both say, no, I like this, I like this. I have confidence that the movie is going to be really a lot of fun. Does it have to be as good as the first two? No. Can it be as good as the first two? No, because it's a different type of story. It's kind of like Kevin Smith doing the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. It was never meant to be the same thing all over again, even though it is kind of the same thing all over again. He was trying to play with those characters a bit more, have a bit more gravitas. And I think it succeeded on that, in a lot of ways. But just like with that movie, if you don't like Bill and Ted, you're not going to like this movie.
right.
So who cares? This is not for someone who isn't already like deeply entrenched in the Bill and Ted universe, right? And like Leon is saying via chat, it is going to be really weird not to see George Carlin there. However, because they are playing it as they've aged X amount of years piece, it's going to be very easy for them to have a scene where they acknowledge that Rufus is gone, you know? So it's weirder. Like, I feel like Rise of Skywalker had a more difficult time explaining away Leia
Mm-hmm.
or working around Leia than this movie will have to explain away Rufus. So I'm going to be upset not to see him, but I know they'll acknowledge it, and there's a million different ways they could do it, and it'll still be a good movie.
Yes. And Leon, hi, sir. And who will Missy be with now? One of them. Yeah. I mean, it's those movies are they're just so much fun. And for me, it was like, and this is kind of we're shifting gears just a little bit by saying that in a lot of ways, I feel like, yeah, uh, there's so many movies that get made where you might say, who asked for this? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Or who is this for?
Right. And I think that to me, reboots, remakes, sequels way after the fact, there's room. There's room for any good story to be told. And if a good story comes out of it, why not? Right? I mean,
Like just before the show, we were talking about Godzilla and Gojira and the new versions and how they relate. They're different films, but they are establishing these characters for a new generation in a different way. You can retell a story as many times as you want, as long as you make it relevant to the culture, right? And
mm-hmm.
I would argue that whether this movie is going for a new generation of people, which I honestly doubt, I think they're probably going to be going right for the fans of the film. They're making it because they want to, which is the best reason to make a movie,
Right.
because you want to. Too many films get made because, well, that's a recognizable name. We could bank that and make some money. And a lot of bad films are made that way. So
Yes.
I don't get that sense from this at all. I feel like it's a sincere.
It's a passion project for
Yeah,
them.
really, yeah. You really get that feeling. So unless they completely shit the bed with it, I think we're going to be fine. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like, to me, there's so many, like, for example, and this might get us into an even stranger subject, but like, I just remember when Solo came out, a lot of people were
Yeah.
like, who asked for this? Well, you could say that about almost any movie,
It's
right?
true.
And while Solo didn't set the box office on fire, while Solo wasn't the most original story told, it was fun.
I think it was really good.
Yeah.
Could you see the seams a little bit with all the stuff that happened behind the scenes? Sure,
Yeah.
but given all of the hoopla surrounding that movie and all the there
Musical
was every
chairs.
reason for that movie to completely fall on its face, right? In terms of just as a movie, like not let's talk about box office. I'm not talking about critics. I'm talking about watch the movie. Does it function well? Does it work? It absolutely works, and
Yep.
it didn't have to be anything. It's just like Rogue One. It doesn't have to live up to anything, but it succeeds at what it set out to do. I think that's what's important. The movie says, I want to tell this story. Did you tell it? Yes. Did it make sense? Yes. You are already way above par 90% of movies that are made. Okay. I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked that Lando was in love with a fucking robot. I loved that. I thought that was great, you know. And
I love that This Is America came out like 2 weeks before the movie came out. That was great. I mean, the timing. Wow.
mm-hmm.
But it was, yeah.
Right.
I'm right there with you. I thought it was a fun time. Now, I mean, could it have been this or that or whatever? And it's I kind of understand the idea that, you know, like you guys wasted that money on like before the movie came out. That was the talk. It was like you guys wasted the money on a solo that or a movie that no one asked for. And I'm like, that's kind of how most movies are made. At least if they're not a
Exactly.
sequel or a reboot, it's literally someone has a story to tell. Lawrence Kasdan, thought he had a good story. He put it together, and that worked. And I just think that the whole thing around Solo was fascinating.
Yes.
Because it was like, okay, we've got this script. Then you've got Lord Miller come in and they say, we're going to put our stamp on it. They're secretly filming scenes and kind of almost misleading Lucasfilm into thinking that the movie was going to be this, but it's really going to be this. And then, you know what I mean? It's so
And then they find
fascinating.
out and it's like, nope, pull the plug.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, this is the only thing about that movie that kind of, I was like, I wish they could have blank. All right. So this is going into big cinephile territory, in my
Okay.
opinion. I would have loved for there to have been an opening scene um, that happens somewhere in between Jedi and Force Awakens. Or like it just shows it's like maybe like a month or two before Force Awakens. And it's Han talking to somebody while he's waiting on Chewie to arrive with the ship that they're going to go looking for the Falcon in. And it's like, so what's your story? You don't want to hear my story. We have plenty of time. Ah, the hell with it. And he starts, and it's Harrison Ford starts to tell the story, and then he gets to narrate it noir style, but do it really well, which would be like a kind of tip of the hat to Blade Runner, where he actually gets to do a voiceover correctly. I would have liked to have seen it more as a noir film. It was a western, it was a good western, but I would have dug it if it was because the plot elements really could have lent themselves to being noir
Oh yeah,
piece,
you could have
you know.
totally,
And it would have
re-edited
been
that in a way.
it would have been a great excuse to have Harrison Ford in it without it being too shoehorned or cheesy. You could have taken a lot more liberties with the way it was edited. You could have jumped around a lot more in the story and had it work. Um, but I still think it was ballsy for them to not do that because maybe that would have been the easy way out. I just would have liked to have heard Harrison Ford doing narration. Yeah, his voice. You know?
Yeah, he's the well, and that's the thing. It's like there's like Blade Runner. I mean, you talk about that movie, crap. Um, that's a perfect example of a movie where a sequel comes out that nobody's asking for. I mean, everybody
and I
wondered.
still
Go ahead.
and I haven't even seen it, but I've heard nothing but good things. Like Jim, you need to see this movie, and I'm
It's
I'm really apprehensive about it.
Is it because you love the original so much,
Mm,
or you don't like it?
I love the original. Well, let me rephrase that. I love the definitive cut of it. Director's cut was good. The theatrical cut is what I grew up with. But even then, I was like, why is this narration here? This is stupid. Like, I can see, like, I know what's happening. I'm not dumb. Um,
Yeah,
but
he's
there's
all
a
like
special place.
the whole time.
Yeah, and the famous tale for those that are listening that don't know, he purposefully flubbed all of the narration in hopes they wouldn't use it because he didn't believe in that choice. He felt that Ridley had shot the right way and that the movie told its own story. So it is a show of solidarity with his director. He tried to get the narration thrown out, and it famously made its way into the movie. So what I've heard, so I love every iteration of the film for different reasons. I thought the ultimate cut or whatever it's called is really good, and I love all the stuff that went into it. Um, it tells the story in a really good way. It still leaves things somewhat ambiguous about certain things, lets you make some choices. My understanding is that the sequel drives some points home in ways that kind of kill that.
You mean the
Um,
ambiguity of things?
yeah, yeah, which I don't necessarily think is such a bad thing overall, because again, if you look at a body of work, because in the future, which is could be tomorrow, someone could watch both those movies back to back for the first time ever and have no negative feelings about that. They don't have a 35 plus year history with that movie. So I'm not going to hold culture responsible for my nostalgia trip, right? And I try very hard to do that with everything. Star Wars, even with Star Wars, I try to be very open because it is not 1977 anymore. It's not 1980. It's not 1990 or even 2000, 2020. Things are going to be different. People will want to tell their stories. And I think it's okay for people to play in these sandboxes and on these playgrounds of characters that we love if it's done for the right reason. And all too often it's not. Um, I recently saw The Meg. I had never seen it before. And I love the fact that they could have called this Jaws 5 if they wanted to. And
Right.
just make it about a megalodon. They could easily have done it. Or Deep Blue Sea 3 or whatever, right? But they made their own thing, and it kind of loosely follows. It kind of like takes a little bit from Jaws, a little bit from Deep Blue Sea, packages some really good character actors in there, an admittedly cheesy and paper thin story, and they have some fun with the idea of a gigantic fuck off shark. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I really liked it. Had some legit, like, oh man, moments. It wasn't completely original, but it was fun.
Right.
That's all that matters. And yes, it was derivative. Or you can take Godzilla or Ghostbusters, like the new Ghostbusters is coming up, is a very different movie thematically from the reboot or even the original two films. But it looks to be very respectful of the lore from the original film, but it's going for something different. I like that
Yeah,
idea.
that one's gonna be really interesting.
It's either
Really.
going to be it's either going to be pitch perfect, just short, or a miserable failure. I think it's going to be just short.
You
I
think
think they're
so?
going to miss something. So I think they're going to miss something.
Well, I just feel like, the fact that, I mean, and again, this doesn't give him a pass, but Jason Reitman's doing it, and he grew
Mm.
up on the set, right? I mean, not grew up on the set, you know what I mean? He was there when he was a kid, and he has fond memories
Right.
of it too, and I mean, it could
I
be,
think that for all the ingredients that need to be there for this totally different take within that universe to work are there. I think it's all there. But you can give me all the ingredients for a souffle. I will fail at it. I don't
right.
make fucking souffles, man. I
No,
don't.
I get
It's
it.
not my thing. So it's, but having been through the process more than once, and even on like small projects to large scale movies and stuff, um, there's always that chance it's going to fall flat in his face. And so there, as a fan, you have gritted teeth. I have a lot of faith in this new Ghostbusters flick. I have a lot of faith in this Bill and Ted, and that Blade Runner 2049 or whatever, 2649, whatever it is. I have faith that it was probably good enough, because I don't hear a lot of like, ugh. People wanted to hate it, and then they watch it and they're like, well, no, it's all right. Which in today's climate, it's about as much as you could hope for. Same thing with the last Halloween movie that came out. I heard the concept and I was like, that might not be it, Chief. And then I heard it was brilliant.
Yeah, I hadn't
really
seen
did
it
a good
yet.
job.
I hadn't seen
I've
that
heard
one yet.
really good things about it. And I'm like,
well, I'll tell you. Okay, so what was that? Trying to remember when. It's probably 98, 97 or something. Because it was, for whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because there was nudity in it, in Blade Runner. But there was, I wasn't allowed to watch that one. And so I always had this weird stigma that I shouldn't see that, or I shouldn't watch that, or whatever. Just never, and then, years pass and you forget about it. When it came out on DVD, that was the first time I watched it, which was the director's cut. And
so that would have been 98, 99.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because
I'm seeing it in stores.
Yeah, I worked at Blockbuster, so at the time.
Right.
In fact, Billy and Jay were there. But anyway.
All together.
I'm going to name drop right now.
All right. Yeah.
But anyway, that was my first time seeing it. And I remember watching it, and it was one of those where I was like, okay, I get it. I get why it's got this cult following. Not for me.
Right.
Just not for me. And then I read an article, and it was, of course, when the Blu-ray, the final cut came out. Mm-hmm. And they spent all the money on the, fixing some of the CG, some of the face replacement stuff they did, all the stuff, whatever. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it another shot. In fact, I'm going to go one better. I'm going to get the big, bad, crazy special edition, whatever Blu-ray, and I'm going to watch every single cut and see the metamorphosis of this movie into what Ridley believes is the definitive version, the final cut. Loved it. And I loved every single version for different reasons. It's the same thing. It's like I love the deadpan delivery that Harrison Ford gives. It gives it a different feel altogether. And then
it makes
you've
you
got
think of the character in a different way too.
Yeah. And I just,
because
I don't know. I loved it. And then again, the final cut to me is the best version.
Yeah. And it helps that when you get that set, because I have it, I bought it on HD DVD first, and I got it on Blu-ray. I didn't get the briefcase, but I got all the discs, like that big thing. And the special features, it was like 6 hours or something.
Awesome.
I just wanted to sit and watch them. I was like, oh. I mean, that's like porn for me. Like, you know this about me. I love learning about this stuff. And that was just like, it's like a big bite of like a juicy steak or whatever. And,
just a second. No.
Okay. Yeah. But the behind the scenes stuff on it is just so good. There you go. The Making of Blade Runner by Paul M. Salmon.
I should probably put my headphones in so I can hear what the hell you said.
I just read the title and the author.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, see, this is the thing, audience.
That is a fat book.
Right, which is why, the behind the scenes are so it takes so long. And the only thing I could compare it to is like the level of care taken with the Alien quadrilogy set, which is just an insane amount of backstory stuff. Yeah, just one of those things.
I would say to Mr. Gamer Tamer 360, fat or fat, PH or F, it is a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's a little bloated.
Yeah, but it's one of those where um the the story is vast. And I will say that this guy, the Paul M. Salmon, whatever, he's a little too, well, when I hung out with Ridley, blah 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 blah.
Mm,
You know what I mean? There is a little bit
yeah.
of that, but it was fascinating, and I thought, dude, and I bought the book because it was on like some super sale where it was like $7, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I love Blade Runner, and then got it. I was like, holy crap, that book is crazy large, and I thought I put off reading it because I thought, oh man, this is gonna be a chore. It's not a chore. If you love Blade Runner, it's worth a read. And then I also bought the ebook version because I bought the ebook version for $1. It was on some crazy sale for $1, and I'm like, no brainer. So
Order 42's thrift sale extravaganza.
hey, if you keep an eye on the deals, you can get yourself some cool stuff. And it's just like, dude, almost a lot of this stuff that I have, the fun, cool movie stuff that I have, it's all on sale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and as our friend Dave would say, somebody's got to buy them. It's just one of those
That's
things
right.
that happens.
That's right.
And speaking of things that you got to buy, like I am totally buying into Bill and Ted 3. I really do feel like the right guys want to do it for the right reasons. In other words, they started it. Like Alex is like, I want to do this. And Alex Winter's a director in his own right. I don't know who's directing it, but I honestly hope he does. Because
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Because I think that would be kind of cool to kind of see it come full circle. But he's been championing from day one. And then basically Keanu, he got the go ahead from him and said, find a good script. And they both signed off on it. And then they got greenlit. Because all the financiers clearly saw that Keanu was on board. They're like, well, we can make money off of his name alone. And they're right. They're absolutely right.
Dean Parisot?
Not familiar with that name.
Yeah, he directed Galaxy Quest.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So
no, I have that much more. And that film itself has aged like fine wine.
Yeah.
There's a documentary about that film on Amazon Prime, which I adore.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but
behind the scenes, man.
I do like it. Yeah, I do like the movie. But to answer Leon's question, does the book have him taking credit for the replicant fan theory? Well, that's one of those weird things because there's a lot of people that say that it is a fan theory, the whole is he or is he not a replicant? But they did film the whole unicorn dream sequence. Right? That's in the work print, which pretty much to me means that they had that he had it in his mind at the beginning. You don't think so? What's that?
Because that unicorn shot is an outtake from Legend, which was filmed after Blade Runner.
I thought that was. Are you sure?
I am positive.
Do I need to reference the tome? No, I'm kidding.
Sir, I will Google it right now. I will keep chat going.
I'm curious. I don't know if let me see if it
just saying.
Oh, yeah, look at there. There's an actual section. Is Deckard a replicant or not? And it's it's toward the end, the director's cut.
There's dust in my book. But and Leon is saying it's additional footage.
Yeah, and I mean I don't even know.
It's from now. I think that
can't remember.
They had he had the unicorn. I think he had the idea, but they couldn't get it to work or something. And then when they got a unicorn in Legend and there's an outtake, he saw fit to put it in the film, release the director's cut. I think like the idea was there. I would argue that whether you think Ridley did it on purpose or it's a fan theory that he took credit for, I think both are correct.
Well, let's see. Who is Fancher? Who is Fancher? Do I need to look this up? Do we need to do this? I think we do because I think we've already gone down this road. I think we got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Blade Runner, 1982. Writers. Yeah, Hampton. Oh, that's right, Hampton Fancher. Okay, so he's one of the screenwriters for the
Mm-hmm.
for the script. This is what he says. The idea of Deckard really being an android sort of invented itself. In the final version of the screenplay I wrote before David Peoples stepped in. So this is, I think David Peoples, if I recall correctly, David Peoples came in to do another rewrite, and Hampton Fancher was the one who had originally written the treatment that ended up being.
And he was the one with the gray hair in the documentary that would talk about he being kind of hurt by it, like because he had invested so much into writing it.
Fancher, right?
Yeah,
That there were some
I
things that
remember,
had
I can see
changed.
his face, glasses, and he's like,
Yeah,
hurt,"
but it says
yeah.
in the final version of the screenplay I wrote before David Peoples stepped in, which I'm not sure he ever saw, I had ended the film with Deckard coming back home and sitting down at his piano. There was a close-up of Deckard's hand going down toward the keys, and suddenly his hand cramped up just like Barry's did. So,
Okay.
according to him, the original, and I mean, who knows? Who
But
knows?
the thing is, though, this could be compared quite easily to the monologue in Jaws. Everyone taking credit
Mm-hmm.
for who wrote that and things, and there's other movies too, like who took credit for the hockey mask in Friday the 13th and all this stuff. And
Yeah,
there's always these, and half the appeal of trying to answer the question is that the question even exists at all.
right.
And at the end of the day, who cares? We're talking about it because it is such an interesting thing to talk about. Who comes up with, because the unicorn is in the film, period. At the end of the original cut of the film, the work print, the theatrical cut, every cut has that. It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does? Like, okay,
That was actually pretty
it's
good.
always
Good little Edward James almost there.
yeah, So I feel like the seed was planted, but I feel like if there was an intent there, I'm willing to believe, I choose to believe that at that time Ridley Scott wanted to leave it open ended. That he didn't want it to be one way or the other.
Right.
He wanted you to wonder.
Yeah, he wanted you to go, what? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like,
I just,
but I also,
God, I love that movie.
yeah, it's a really good movie.
And I'm telling you, it is so ballsy for that movie to end and so cool. Like, holy crap, that was awesome. He just picks it up, he just shakes his head, turns his back to the camera, walks, the elevator's doors close, and credits. And I'm like, yes! Oh, it's so good.
And I like the theatrical ending too. I like that too. I like them both. I prefer the ultimate cut and director's cut ending because that's like the elevator doors are just a close up of Ridley's middle finger going, no,
I'm
not gonna like wrap this up in a bow for you. This is what the story is supposed to be.
I love it.
And it's a great story about when financiers screw up movies.
Mm-hmm.
I can name any classic film, and I can tell you how whoever was paying the bills probably would have screwed it up. Star Wars, like there's a million different takes on that. Like even Lucas himself, arguably, he screwed up his own franchise in places with certain decisions because there was no one who was going to step up to him and be like, boss, come on, dude. Because he's paying for it. It's his baby. Like,
and who knows more than the guy that created it, right?
Who supposedly. But it's just one of those things where money is the root of evil.
It's weird though.
Bad writing.
In a lot of ways, and not to shift from that because I think that that's important, but Blade Runner, one of the things that I and Leon says that he finds the film boring personally, but looks great. What I'm
I can
curious
see that.
what I'm curious about is, uh, like Leon, what did you think about 2049, or did you see it, or did you say, yeah, I'm not watching that? Because here's the thing, and then like I said, I don't want to. Uh, oh yeah, Ridley going back to Alien with Prometheus. But anyway, before we get there, because that's actually not a bad little segue there. But
Okay.
it's one of those things where 2049, what I love about it, one of the things I love about it is whatever you think about Deckard, I think the film works.
I mean,
And it's just there are moments in that movie 2049 just like Blade Runner that I'm like, that's a weird scene. That's a weird one. But there's something about it where, to me, what I love about one of the things I love about Blade Runner is the feel of it. I mean, Blade Runner's got
mm,
some creepy scenes. I mean, the whole kiss me scene is creepy as hell.
oh, dude.
But then,
D-
if you think about it from the perspective if he's a replicant and he just doesn't understand human whatever. But anyway, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But 2049, there are some scenes that blew my mind, blown away, hashtag blown away.
We just had a discussion about hashtags too.
I'm just kidding. But I just I loved it. I loved it. Um See, I again liked how 2049 looked, but not much of a film for me. I was more interested in the Bautista, but at the beginning that were all one shots on YouTube, I think. You know, those one shots were pretty cool too. The little short films were fun. At least to me, I really enjoyed those.
They lit into the film, right?
Yeah, they're kind of they're like I would I mean they're not necessary, but it's one of those things where if you really, you would probably love it because you're kind of a completist. Um
Yes.
Rogue Heron. Did you see this?
Oh, thanks, man.
He says
Appreciate that.
loved the last interview. Yeah, that's a man. It was really good. It was a lot of
It
fun.
was a beast. I had to watch it twice. Um, but what I find interesting is that because I'm in what I would consider pre-production for uh me shooting a mini documentary about my music career, and so I'm listening to the way that I'm telling the stories and trying to figure out, okay, how do I get that back? Because the tone of the way I'm telling the story, I liked it. Because I've told a lot of those stories before in different podcasts and videos and live streams and stuff. But I liked the way that flowed. I liked the way that it all kind of came together. So I'm hoping to give it, do it justice when I finally sit down. Because what I'm waiting to do is I got to sit down with all of this footage. And I got to decide, okay, what story beats do I need to hit? What footage do I need to tell that? What footage am I missing? So what do I have to talk about? Because if I just sit and talk about everything in explicit detail of with all the stuff that I have, I would have like 17, 18 hours of interview footage. Like it'll take me a long time to really truly tell that story in the detail I want to have in the film. Um, but no one's gonna watch a 6 hour cut of that. It's not gonna work.
Some
So I
people
have to
would.
try and. Well, I mean, that's true.
Some people
I
like
can
that
think of
stuff.
right. I know you would watch it.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
you would, especially now. And I appreciate that, brother. I do. Um, and the thing is, I'm having to do it with just me because the people that I want most to be in it, I either can't coordinate them filming themselves or I can't get to them to film. And I'm kind of in this place where if I can't get everyone I want to interviewed, I'm not going to do it because it would be too disjointed. I want there to be like a consistency to the whole thing.
Right.
But I worry that if it's just me, it's going to come off as an ego piece, which let's face it, it is to a certain degree. Like there's I can't sit here and say there's zero ego in my self-made documentary about me. Like that would be false, right? But I just want the story to be told.
It's also a
to be out
document,
there.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. I want I want their, if anyone ever asks the question of like, well, how did that, or someone buys like the old, cardiac stuff and says, well, who's that guy? I want to be able to know. Here's where he came from. Here's what he did. Because I filmed all this stuff. I want people to see it. There's some really fun stuff to document. Things that people never get to see. Things from time periods that they don't get to experience. Like the 90s will never happen again. The early 2000s will never happen again, and so forth. So, another plane.
Did you hear all this? Somebody's
All I heard was
leaf blower. I mean, everything is going like, outside
for like a split second. That's all. But
there is a Bubbles in here.
Oh, hey, Bubbles.
Bubbles asks, "What are you talking about?" And hi.
What you talking about? I'm just indulging myself.
It says, "Many humans didn't see the movies Brain Dead and Meet the Feebles either. Humans surely miss a lot."
This is true. Those are great movies. I love those.
Yeah.
I remember my first experience with Brain Dead was when it was the American release Dead Alive. And then I found out that there was the other release that had like more blood. And like, where would you fit more blood in this movie? No, they found a place to put it. Great movie, Peter Jackson. Amazing.
I'm the only one in Denmark who saw both. Do you know who this is?
No, I have no idea.
Well, that's awesome. Well, welcome to
Peter Jackson's Muppets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's like, how do you, like, it's going to be interesting. Like, how do you approach it? Do you approach it very documentary style, or do you approach it almost like there's a narrative? You know what I mean? Almost like a narrative style.
I have to do it like interview documentary style. Otherwise, because for example, the way I have some of it, and I need to show this to you one of these times, there's like a supercut of just footage from one weekend festival, and that by itself is like 38 minutes long. I could really cut that down to some really choice pieces, but in order for you to get the most out of it, I either have to cram all kinds of captions all over the screen, or I have to pause the video and tell you, okay, well, here's what's happening here. Here's why this person's here. That's why it's significant. So there has to be some way of tying it all together and putting the mortar to the brick. Because there's so many cool things that happen in just that one weekend that if you don't have context, you'll miss it. Like we're having a discussion outside of the venue with the drummer for Denial Fiend, whose vocalist was one of the original lineups of the band Death. And that drummer was in a band called Nasty Savage, which is very influential in the Florida scene and pushing certain other kinds of stuff. And while we're having that discussion, the camera pans to the left. And you see Billy Milano, who was the vocalist for MOD and Stormtroopers of Death, which is an offshoot of Anthrax. And that's just one conversation. And if I don't walk you through that and how mind-blowing that weekend was, it is lost on you. And that footage is useless. So I have to do something with it.
Right.
Because it was just too cool of an experience that is never going to happen again. And that's just one weekend out of 15 years. So you understand why I'm not like chomping at the bit to
yeah, you've got
get all this put together.
Wow. Bubbles says something about I heard that in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, Stormtroopers of Death came out in 85. The album was called Speak English or Die. Still is called that, by the way. Um, hardcore thrash crossover, total joke band. Like all the jokes are like meant to be funny, but it's still controversial all the same. And it's a lot of fun. Like it's one of it has some of the heaviest stuff out there, even for by today's standards, still pretty up there. Um, and Billy, who was the vocalist, he went on to form a band, MOD, Method of Destruction, and he was at the gig because one of the bands that he was either doing tour management for or just regular management were there, I guess. So he was just there. And I'm like, I don't want to bother him, but I want to bother him. And I didn't, to be fair, because he is a legendarily snappy, loudmouth dude. He doesn't want to talk to you. He'll make a big stink about it. And I was like, I don't need this. I've had too much to drink. I can't do that. So I didn't do it. But, what can you do? But you were saying before that talking about Ridley Scott coming back and doing Prometheus was a good segue.
Well, I was just saying that might be something we touch on too, because if you really think about it, Prometheus definitely was almost the exact same kind of concept. You've got a series of movies, or a movie that you did, Ridley Scott I'm talking about.
Right.
1979. And then however many years later, I don't know how many years passed when he came back to Prometheus. You could say the same thing about the whole Bill and Ted thing. You could say the same thing about, Train Spotting. Train Spotting was another one where they took a long break before they came back.
True.
And it's
SLC Punk even did have a sequel out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as good of a film as the first one. But as someone who's deeply entrenched in that movie, it is in my top 5 of all my favorite movies. It was nice to see those characters, some of them anyway, again. It could have been done better. There are some things I would have liked to have been in it, but it was fun. Prometheus, I would not say that about. I would say, nice try. It was fun. We don't need any more of them.
Well, here, let me tell a little story about Prometheus, because it is an interesting one. Or at least I think it is. So this was opening night for Prometheus. I'm an Aliens. I'm insane. I love Aliens, right?
Me too.
I collected the comics. I did the, I know a lot about Aliens, and I love the idea that each movie introduced almost like a new layer to what the aliens are. So
yeah, really, the lore was always being expanded, and it seemed natural,
right?
Whether it was just the circumstances creating something like an Alien 3 or Resurrection, where circumstances created certain things, or necessity from a screenwriting standpoint. We need the aliens to swim. They're mutated. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I can see that. Like, so the movies were rife for world building.
Well,
like,
right.
They'd established that from the beginning. But you were saying.
But yeah, it's weird. The Aliens, of course, was like, to me, for a long time, was like the gold standard. And then when Alien 3 came out, and spoiler alert, they killed off everybody but Ripley, I was very upset. So then Dark Horse Comics came out with their own sequel, and that was really fun. And I really liked the exploration that in the comics wasn't just about the aliens, but it was also about what we find out are engineers in Prometheus. And so for me, I loved Prometheus because I love the lore about it. And it's like, to me, there's something in every movie, even some of my favorite movies, where I go, that's stupid, or that's bad.
The whole thing is that, like, my problem with Prometheus boils down to something very simple. I like what they did with the engineers, but you need 3 hours and all these other characters to tell me that? You could have done that in a 35-minute short film and been really, truly effective. I would have loved it. But I think that it was Ridley Scott, as is per usual, decided he wanted to get bougie with aliens, which is okay. He was the first one to bring it into the world. He has earned that right. However, I don't need it. It's like high fructose corn syrup. I don't need it.
But
I don't need it.
I will say that some of those scenes in Prometheus are very effective. In fact,
Yes.
now
I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a complete failure of a movie and it sucked. I'm not saying that. It didn't resonate as an entire film for me. That's all.
I get it. I get what you're saying. But I will tell you that when the surgery scene happens in the pod, right?
Yeah.
That was an intense scene. So intense that the person behind me started having a seizure. I looked back because and they had the movie blaring. I mean, it was so loud, and it was that's a visceral scene the first time you see it. It's like, holy crap. Yeah. And I looked back and a guy's having a seizure. I go, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. I love, again, this is one of those things about the movie experience that I loved, because to me, it was so, when I'm sitting there watching it and it's intense and I look back and there's somebody having a seizure, I'm like, it added to the experience, because the guy must have been freaked out. I don't know what's wrong with him, but
did you check on him?
They carried him out. I don't know if it was because there were flashing lights at that point. I don't know if it's because it was so intense, but I'm sitting there going, holy crap. When
this literally gave someone a seizure. Yeah.
It was just like, that was amazing. And I know that that's terrible, and I'm sure he's fine, because they probably would have closed down the theater and shut off the screen and stuff if somebody died. But I'm serious. I'm it added to it, because I was like sitting there freaking out. Now, here's the funny thing. When I had all my...
Oh, there's a joke in here?
No.
Okay,
well, funny carefully. as in ironic, whatever. Time, what's interesting is the way that surgery happens is a lot of what I experienced. And so watching the film now has a very different effect.
Yeah.
So it's just...
I find that too. Like certain movies, certain depictions of mortality freak me out now in a way that they didn't when I was younger. Because when you're younger, you think you're invincible and you'll live forever and shit.
Oh, yeah.
And so now, stuff really gets to me. There's stuff that I would laugh at, that now I'm like, oh, I can't do it.
Skating videos.
I totally get that.
Dude, I watch skating videos now, and like when somebody just really just smashes hard, it actually makes me, like that little, like I feel empathy for the person. And I'm like, oh man, that had to hurt.
There was a time, even 10 years ago, that I would watch fail videos like that, take myself feel better about myself. Like if I'm having a bad day, I'd be like, well, at least I'm not these people. I just watch people being stupid. But yeah, I can still kind of go, but I think that's what's great about storytelling and film. That you've got this static piece of art that can change by virtue of your perception and your growth over time.
Right.
When I was a kid, my favorite Indiana Jones film was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now it's Last Crusade because of the relationship with his father. And the thing is, when that movie came out, originally in theaters, my sister and her then boyfriend, now husband, they were going to go take me to see it. And I almost had a breakdown. When they asked me, I'm like, I want to see it with Dad. I'm 12 years old, not really prone to crying fits. I wasn't that guy, even then. But I guess in that moment, I realized how much it meant to me to see that series with my dad, because I grew up on it with him. And we didn't see it until it came out on VHS, and we talked about it. And he said, if you ever wanted to know what it's like to be a father, that's the best depiction I've ever seen. He said, and as a father now, who has an estranged relationship with this child, that movie takes on a whole other meaning for me. But I had an estranged relationship with him for a while too. So there's all that life experience enhances a story after the fact, which is great. Lethal Weapon, same thing. I made a video, which I have to show you. I have to show you this one sometime. And it's called My Life According to Lethal Weapon. I was in a dark spot the year I made this movie. And so I put together this whole thing. But I looked at certain parts that, like, you know, when you first see that movie, you see he's hurting and you feel empathy for him and you go, man, he must really be having a hard time. Then you have times as hard as he's had. And you start to understand him way better. And it's like, oh, like that movie is way better than 9-year-old me gave it credit for. 10-year-old me gave it credit for. It was a fun movie.
No, he didn't make it. He made a video. Somebody said, "Did he make Lethal Weapon?" No,
I am not Richard.
Yeah,
the rumors are not true. I am not Richard Donner, my friend. But I made a video like about how that movie relates to me and my
no
life
problem.
and stuff. Yeah. But like, but that's a prime example. You know, can you give me an example of a film, like a film that from start to finish, you loved it when you were younger, and now you totally love it just as much, but for completely different reasons?
Dark Knight Rises.
Something like that. Boom. Why?
It's simple. So in order to tell this, or to tell you about this, I kind of have to get into a little bit of my medical history. By the way, this was not planned, but here we go.
I know this was.
So, yeah, this is, in fact, you don't even know this whole story. I've told you bits and pieces, but so let's rewind the clock. So, October 2013, I weigh 250 pounds, and I love mixed martial arts. And I think, you know what? I'm going to try this whole UFC fit thing and see what happens. I start doing it, and I push and push and push. I love it so much that I lose 65 pounds in 5 months. That's a lot of weight. That's 15 pounds, average of 15 pounds a month. Yeah, that is unhealthy. It's very unhealthy. That's why, you know, every time you see a commercial about a weight loss product, they say consult your doctor before, you know, undergoing any whatever. The problem was I wasn't eating enough. I was eating a lot of calories, but I was burning insane amount of calories because UFC Fit is like, it's all plyometrics. So, and it's tough. It is a tough workout. Basically,
you're altering your metabolism, you're altering your hormone levels at that point. There's a ton of stuff can go wrong chemically with you.
Yeah, and what was funny was, I mean, almost complete muscle failure every day. I was pushing myself very hard. I would finish my workout and I would go out on the back porch and smoke a cigarette. But anyway, so I go from 250 pounds, which is probably, for me, it was the worst worst shape I'd ever been in my life, to 185 pounds of a lot of muscle, and was like probably the best shape of my life. I mean, I still had a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to tone up and stuff, but my body was doing things I didn't even think were possible. Then apparently I have Crohn's disease. And I have diverticulitis. And what happens is, with diverticulitis, you eat anything with seeds, and it can get caught in places in your intestines. Well, think about what happens when you lose weight. The reason they say don't lose weight too much too fast is because your body cavity shrinks, but your intestines don't. Your intestines take a lot longer to fix themselves. So what happened was, my intestines remained the same size, but my body cavity was shrinking. It basically formed a kink in my large intestine. That, paired with diverticulitis, I got a blockage and it exploded. And I had 3 surgeries and I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I almost died multiple times. Then, yeah, so let's see, that was, so by the end of, so that was March when that happened, the end of March, right before my birthday is when all this went down. And I think I had surgery the day after my birthday, one of the surgeries, but I was seriously almost dead because I went septic, right? So my body's poisoning itself. It's all of that nastiness is just emptying into my body cavity. So it took me a long time to get over it. They were pumping me full of vitamins and I couldn't eat, of course. So they were pumping me full of nutrients and all that stuff. And I got really bloated. So I gained, I don't know how much weight I gained, but I was heavy. I was heavy again. And I looked like, almost like, I know this is going to sound weird, but it's almost like a rubber glove. And if you blow it up, and you know how puffy it looks?
I know exactly what you mean. Yep.
That's how my hands looked. That's how I just looked.
Because you had fluid in you all the time.
Right. It was insane.
All the time.
So then I somehow, which I think it has to do with a lot with how good a shape I was in, that I got myself in. My heart was strong. Everything was strong. I was able to pull out of it. I had to learn to walk again because my muscles atrophied so much, because I literally could just mostly stay in bed. I finally got home, and in fact, my brother's here. If my brother's still here, he can attest to this. He saw me at the worst, down at the bottom. And what happened was, I get home, and I start going to the restroom, peeing all of it out. And by the end of April, so if you're keeping track, October, 250, end of March, when I go into the hospital, I weigh 185. By the end of April, I weighed 135. So I was literally half the man I used to be. But yeah, I'm telling you, when I heard that song, it hit differently because it actually, it was like, and I kept saying, the joke that I always told was, I'm kind of a prick, right? So if I'm half the man I used to be, does that mean that I'm half as much of a prick, or am I more of a prick because now I'm condensed? So am I like anyway,
I'm gonna start calling you Minute Maid. Like now I think of the concentrate can.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Like just open. What the thing is with Rob, he's Minute Maid. He's concentrate. You break that seal, it's just gonna come.
Oh boy!
Out.
But
anyway.
So.
But you'll get lots of vitamin C.
Yes, but I will tell you, it was a long, 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 difficult road back to where I am today. It took months of eating right and all that stuff. Then I won't go into all the details, but at the end of 2016, I had another rupture. I'm sorry, at the end of 2015, I had another rupture. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Beginning of 2016. Sorry. It all runs together for me. But
I understand. Basically,
in 3 years, I had 7 surgeries. And I was really in the most danger at the beginning when it first happened. But when I had that rupture in 2016, they put me on TPN, which is the nutrition, and I didn't leave the house for 17 months. And the only time I left the house was to go to the doctor. And I had the nutrition. The only thing I could eat was about, 2 ounces, like a little bowl of mashed potatoes every day. And that was it. They removed my entire colon. And I still have a small leak that basically goes out the front of my body. I won't go into detail, but it's not fun to deal with. I'll just say that. But anyway, the worst part wasn't the physical. Now, I can tell you, it was extreme pain like I've never felt before. It was actual. They said what you felt was literally like being shot in the belly with a shotgun. And if you've seen any movies, when they talk about gut wounds, they say it's the most painful thing that a person can experience. I felt that. And it was absolutely insane. It was like I was on fire from the inside out. I hope I'm not losing viewers by telling the story, but the worst part was the mental. The mental side of it was absolutely awful because you see what happens is when something like that happens, you're surrounded by support, family, friends. They come out of the woodwork, and you're like, you feel like this extreme amount of positivity and love, and you're just like, I'm going to make it through this, and I'm going to, because basically what I had decided, and this was in the hospital, because I'm hallucinating. My body is in overdrive trying to fight all the junk in my system, and I'm hallucinating like insane. Like, I'm literally seeing things like from Alien. It's like that, but more intense and scarier. Every time I close my eyes, it was like a movie waiting to start. It's crazy. But what got me through is I said, this is going to sound cheesy, but because of all the MMA stuff I'd been doing, I read a lot of Bruce Lee. And he, of course, he says when water is the most powerful substance on earth. When you pour it into a glass, it becomes the glass. When you pour it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. So, and he said, be water, my friends. And that was what I said. And this is weird because Be Water just came out, the documentary on ESPN, which is amazing. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's insane.
I keep meaning to catch it.
But anyway, that's how I got through it. But then the family, the support, the friends, and all that stuff, they surround you. And you feel, I can do this. I can do this. But then, just like anything traumatic that happens in life, the grief takes over and everybody goes back to their normal life. And you're alone.
And you're left with it.
And you're left with the memory of who you used to be. And it's one of those things that when someone, the thing is I'm sitting there and it's called the home health nurse, comes out, checks my blood, does all the stuff. I mean, it's the reason that I have all these scars is because the Crohn's was attacking my system. So I would have incredible acne, which I still from time to time I deal with, but like that right there. And I thought for a while there, I was really self-conscious about it, but now I'm like, no, these are war wounds. I battled death and won. I'm still here.
You don't have to show for it, these stupid pockmarks.
Right. But what's weird is, I was having a really tough time. I mean, and I would have my days of pure unadulterated hatred for the human race. Because I'd watch movies and everybody's eating and they're having a good time. Everything's good. And I'm like, you people don't understand how good you have it, right? My home health nurse, very wise man, he tells me, he goes, what you're experiencing is grief. Because what died is your former self. You are grieving your former life. And you're grieving because you know it can't ever be that way again. And now it's the new normal. This is the new you. So now you have to decide. I mean, I almost sound like Gandalf there for a second. But I mean, it's you have to move forward with that new normal. In spite of everyone going back to their lives and everything's, and then they, hey, I'm going to this thing, Facebook, right? Again, even to this day, I couldn't, man, it's difficult some days. And it's a hard thing to deal with. And I'm still dealing with the Crohn's. I'm taking the medication. Because of that, it bumps down my immune system. I can't go outside. I mean, I'm in danger when there's not a pandemic of getting sick and getting sicker than anyone else. The pandemic has made things really difficult. I haven't left the house for barely anything since mid-March. But then again, I played that game before. I was home for 17 months. I got this. It's no big deal. I'm fine.
I've got the T-shirt. Exactly.
Yeah, but what's weird is that was a really long way to get to this point, and that is The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises, when it came out, I was very irritated with that movie because it wasn't the Batman I grew up with. It was very, very different. It was very whatever. But I watched it because, you know, I think Bane's cool, right? Even if I wasn't a big, huge fan of the movie,
Right.
I was a big fan of Bane. And I ended up liking the movie pretty well, whatever. But I'm watching the movie after all this has happened, and I see Bruce make his way out of the prison. And that music kicked in, and I am telling you, I'm almost tearing up right now just thinking about it. I lost my mind because it was insane. It was therapy. It was because, I mean, seriously, he's reborn when he gets out of that hole, and he's got a new focus and a new drive, and he rebuilt himself in that prison and came out of it. You know what I'm saying? All of the similarities between I'm like, oh my God, this movie, holy crap. They didn't mean that. They didn't intend for that to be that kind of thing. But when that Batman theme kicks in, I seriously was like, I was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Okay? So that's, I don't know when that was. I think that was probably late 2014 when I'm probably at the worst, and I've got at the time, I mean, I'm telling you, if you can just put yourself in that perspective for a minute, you're at home, you can't leave, you've got a colostomy bag, and you've also got you've got the IV that you have to deal with 12 hours a day, and if you need to get up and go to the restroom, you have to pick it up and carry this basically bag of liquid to the thing, and it's always pulling on things, and you've got to keep everything super, clean because it's direct, that IV goes directly into your heart. You've got to be careful, all of these things. It was an insane time. And the fact that I was able to get, in fact, yeah, you can see it. That's where it was for 17 months. Or actually longer, about 20 months. But that's and man, I'm telling you, I was awake for a lot of things. And they weren't all pleasant. I will say that. Got a catheter put in while I was awake. That was fun. They call it, it's called an NG tube. And what it is when you have stomach surgery, they basically put a tube through your nose, down your throat, into your stomach, so that it basically is filtering all that out, so there's nothing moving through the system. Makes sense, right? Like, if you're going to fix the pipes, you're not going to run water through it the whole time, right?
Right.
So the way that when it went in, so I wake up and it's in there, right? They take it out, and of course I'm awake for that. Oh, you could just imagine.
Yeah.
You can feel it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Then they go, you're not healed up in there yet. We've got to put it back in, and we can't put you under. So they got to put it in while I'm awake. Okay. Now, again, I was a very modest guy, for the, like I didn't like taking off my shirt, and being like very, showy or whatever. There have been, I mean, so many people have seen me naked now. It's just insane. And seen parts of my body that I haven't even seen. So, yeah, I have no modesty anymore. They're like, hey, we need to check. Okay. And go. Do what you need to do.
Get it done.
You name it. You name the... It's going to sound bad, but you name the hole, and somebody's been in there doing things, and it's not all fun, let me tell you. But I have to say, it's an insane And you come out of something like that and you look around, you see the world with new eyes and with a new perspective and a new appreciation for how bad things can really be. And you want to know, gosh, I'm telling this whole story. I apologize. I don't mean to
No,
make this all about this.
great. No, it's good.
But it's like once you get me talking about it, it's like boom. But this is going to sound crazy. Okay? So I've got I really appreciate the love, guys. Thank you for being here and listening to me rattle on with this crazy story, because it is crazy. But I'm sitting there and I've got a whole, basically, if you can imagine, probably this far above where your belly button is. Okay? There's a hole there that basically there's a line that's communicated to my intestines. And every now and then stuff just comes out of it. Okay? Then I've got a colostomy bag. I don't have this now, by the way. It's different now. But you've got the bag, got that. Then I'm hooked to an IV and I'm sitting there and I'm feeling sorry for myself. Woe is me. And then I see a commercial on TV. And it's a St. Jude's commercial. And it's a little girl that's never been out of the hospital. And she's sitting there and she's smiling and she's coloring and she's like, look at this picture I drew. And it's the guy that's there to draw her blood or to give her medication. And it's painful. And they sing the name game while they're doing it to try to get her. Oh my gosh, dude. I don't want to do this on stream. She's never been out of the hospital, dude. And I'm sitting here going, I'm looking down and I go, it's not that bad. Sorry. Wow. How the hell did I get into this today? Boy, this is going to be.
Because I asked you a smart question.
All you asked me was name a movie that's different now.
I already knew the answer. You told me about Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, but yeah, dude. It's one of those things that it just, like I said, it gives you perspective. And then, you know, while we're at it, I can just say my piece a little bit. God, sorry. It's all about perspective, right? And there's people in the world that go through things that you don't understand and that you don't have any way of knowing what it's like to be them. And if you can just take a moment and put yourself in their shoes, then maybe you look at your own life and you go, you know what? I could do more. And yeah. So anyway, like I said, I don't want this to be, you know, a woe is me thing, because trust me, there are people that are dealing with things that are, I mean, magnitudes worse than what I've had to deal with. But
it's not a woe is me tale. It's a tale of I went into the hell and I came out. This is what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Gosh, what I've learned is that what I did, people said, because I've had many people tell me, and I'm not tooting a horn or anything, but I've had many people say that story is inspirational because you turned yourself around. You came out of, again, it was the deep, dark hole in the prison, and you came out of it with an attitude of positivity and love and understanding and perspective. I don't think I did anything special. I just didn't give up. So you can understand, Jim and the viewers, you can understand when you see this Game Chasers movie, why it meant so much to me. Yeah.
Exactly. I every person that you see, every person that you interact with on any given day, there is no way to ascertain what has happened to them that day, let alone in the weeks and months and years prior. Everyone has their own struggle. Everyone has their own perspective. And I think that all too often we forget that we're all in this together on one level or another. The only way any of this works is if we try to keep in our hearts that we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to be the best people that we can. We're trying to get through this. And some people are faced with trials and difficulties and demons that many of us will thankfully never have. But they still exist. Just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. And I would say that it is the responsibility of every individual to at least know and attempt to understand that the next guy might have it better, might have it worse, but we have to acknowledge that it's not about you and that we have to all do our best to make the group, the whole, a better experience, because we affect each other, we affect those that come after us, we affect the planet that we're on, and so on. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And we have to do what we can in the small ways to affect things positively. Something as simple as smiling at someone else can have a butterfly effect in life after life after life. And you don't have to have gone through what, you did to have that perspective, but I would imagine it helps.
Yeah.
you know, but you have to. Like, one of the things that I do, for example, I'm a metal guy. I'm wearing death metal gear all the time. I got tattoos up and down my arm, and they're not of pretty things. And one of the things that I've always made it a point to do is that the more outlandish that I appear and I'm in public, the more polite I want to be. Because I want to show people that I see them. I'm not trying to put you off by representing the culture that I represent. I'm just like you. I just see things a different way. So I'm going to hold that door. I'm going to engage that cashier. I'm going to help that old lady. I'm going to make that baby laugh or cry if I accidentally stare at him too long, which has happened.
Yeah.
These are the things that you try. I think everyone tries on some level, but you have to be conscious of it. And that's thing, before all of this happened with the pandemic and of course the climate in our country right now of hopefully change. It is imperative that you understand that you can help others just by trying to understand. It's one of the hardest lessons.
Well, I have said well, probably 2014 was probably the peak of me thinking this, but perspective is something that we can all, use. Just being able to literally put yourself in those positions and try to understand. And it was so weird because for the longest time I felt like I didn't have anything to offer. Like, that story is it is personal, but it could have happened to anybody. The way that it happened, it was a perfect storm. Um, like I said,
And look at where it came from. It came from a place of
trying to make my body better, and then I almost died.
Right. And that in and of itself had to fuck with you for years.
Oh my
like
god!
if I hadn't have done that, if I had just done this, the wheel of regret and the second guessing, you
Variables.
can't do. You can't even do that societally either. Like, we can't, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Looking at what's happening right now in the country right now, we have these systems that we need to break down for the better of everybody. However you want to look at it, whatever perspective you come from, I think we can agree that things as they are not working for everyone. There's not a single person in the United States that the system as it is truly benefiting at this moment, because some people are fed up with it and those that were benefiting from the system before, well, it's not going to go on the way it was before. So you're no longer benefiting either. So, but you can't move forward with that change only focusing on the past, the fact that it existed. Well, my ancestors did some dastardly shit. I'm not directly responsible for that. What I am responsible for is putting my best foot forward to try and be a part of the understanding and the healing that has to happen to make these changes happen so that everyone has equality and can benefit properly as a society, right? Just like you can't go back and say, well, I should have done this, should have done that. Well, you didn't. You're here now.
I shouldn't have eaten the bowl of popcorn that caused the problem.
See, I don't eat popcorn.
There you go. Yeah,
Maybe
if you have, if there's anything really to be learned by my story, it's don't eat popcorn if you have diverticulitis. It's just not a good idea. But
it is true though. But ultimately,
I hear what you're saying.
You know, I don't want to make it about that, but I do want to say that it all, and I've said this on the show many times, it all connects together. And you don't have to think about this as a permanence every single moment of every single day. But when you have a moment of clarity, own it and take advantage of it. If you have a chance to make someone else's day better or to allow someone else to make your day better, do it. It's that simple. It really is that easy. Because it doesn't have to be this overarching, you don't have to be Bruce Lee. You know, and even using Bruce's thing, because I'm a student of his as well, in terms of philosophy. We're both big fans of him. It is not that he expects you to be water. He expects you to aspire to be water,
right?
To make the attempt. And that is what it's about.
Well,
you're trying to be better.
You know, it's funny. There's the weird thing too, and again, Bubbles Octavius, guys, thank you for I mean, seriously, it means a lot to me that I mean, what you're saying is I very well appreciate it. But there was oh God, now I'm blanking on his name. The guy that does the training on the UFC Fit. He's a famous oh my God, I can see his face. Anyway, it doesn't matter. One of the things that, because there's certain things that, you know, people tell you, people say, and I don't think they even realize the wisdom in what they're saying at the time. And what he's saying is, because I mean, I was 250 pounds. I couldn't lift my leg straight out above my waist. You know what I mean? When I was 250, you know, I couldn't do that. It was like, that's pulling in the back of my leg there. Like, I haven't moved like that since I was 6, whatever. Right. Anyway, I was a big guy. Anyway, he said, look, don't think that it's one of them. It's probably like the 4th day or whatever, where I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I'm going to die. Just trying to get this exercise finished. How am I going to get through this? And he says, it's not about doing it perfect. It's about getting better every day. And I went, holy crap. That's applicable to everything, anything.
It really is.
And it's one of those things. It's just like you said, it's aspiring to be water. It's aspiring to be better. And it all came from The Dark Knight Rises. So,
and I gotta be honest, you know, with the aspiration to be better, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to at least give it your best shot. You have to aspire to be the best you can be in the moment, in the context that you're in, regardless of the past. And that is my hope for you, Bill and Ted 3.
Now that is a hell of a segue right there. That was good.
Not my first rodeo.
You just brought it all back. But yes. But you know what? I will say this, because this is one of those things where, like I said, I didn't think I was going to do this live. I think it would have been different if I'd actually recorded it. I don't know if the passion would have been there. I felt there was an urgency, almost like I had to get it all out. Then
I'm not saying I did it on purpose, but
hey, I appreciate it. It was a layup, the layup of this channel so far, I think. Um, it's probably a good thing to get it out, because what I'm gonna say next is might piss off some people, and it's about The Last Jedi.
Oh shit. Okay. One of the very first conversations I ever had with Robbo here
It was The Last Jedi.
was a 2.5 hour discussion, and an intense one at that.
Well, it was weird.
We-
I felt weirdly at peace having that conversation with. Let's see, it was Billy, Jay, Wood, you. It's a lot of people there. It was a crazy conversation.
And wasn't Scott there?
Scott was there too, yeah. He didn't say much though. I think he was just letting the conversation happen. But the thing is, dude, when you go through, and this is why I have to say this now, and I can't wait, because I think you kind of need to hear that story to understand what I'm saying here. And that is, you don't have to go through what I went through to like The Last Jedi. And if you don't like The Last Jedi, I am not going to try to change your mind, because that's one of the things that you start to realize, perspective-wise, is that you don't have time for the negativity anymore. The negativity is wasted energy. You realize that the negativity, all it does is bring you down. All it does is make you see all the faults in the thing. But it can't let you move forward if you're constantly looking back. So, the one thing that and that's one of the things that I had to learn. Trust me, I learned it the hard way. But with The Last Jedi, the reason that it spoke to me on a level that I don't think works for a whole, and maybe it does, and maybe it does work for other people this way, but for me, I felt like Luke in a lot of ways, and this came out at the end of 2017, okay? So I'd already gone back to work. Everything was okay. It's not like this came out in a way and changed my perspective. What it did is it spoke to me, Luke's story spoke to me in a way that I never thought the movie would. Like, you see the trailer and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to tell you why the Jedi need to end," or whatever he says at that line. And I was just like, "Okay." And then what's funny is Mark Hamill does those interviews right before the movie comes out and says that I fundamentally disagree with every decision made for my character. And I went, good. And the reason I say that is because I had suffered through Legends. And Legends made Luke Skywalker into a superhero. And I hated it. I hated the fact that they turned the Jedi into a superhero. And that's not what Jedi are supposed to be. They're supposed to be samurai. And samurai have a much different code than some superheroes. Now, Captain America is probably one of the best superheroes as far as, nobility and courage and honor and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what the Jedi are. Anyway, so when he throws the lightsaber over his shoulder, I went, where are we going here? It hadn't turned me off. See, I think a lot of people at that moment, that pissed them off so bad that the switch got turned off and they weren't allowing the movie to wash over them. I could be wrong. But anyway, I'm just telling you what I felt. And what I felt is when he comes out of that hallway toward the end, bathed in light. And I was like, holy crap, here we go. Didn't even consider the fact that he might not actually be there. It spoke to me in a way that I'm like, this guy went all the way to the bottom. He saw everything he built destroyed. He saw everything that he worked toward dismantled. He awakens himself back up to the Force to see his best friend murdered at the hands of his own son that he himself pushed to the dark side via Rashomon, by the way, little Akira Kurosawa there, which I love. And that's another reason why I was like, this movie's pretty good. I like it. You're referencing Rashomon? I'm pretty excited, Anyway, you get to the end, you realize he's not there, and that he's gone through all of that, and yet still come back to inspire the entire galaxy without lifting a finger or showing any violence. I was kind of like, I mean, I mean, you saw it. You saw it after the movie came out. You know, not my hashtag, not my Luke, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
that's like totally my Luke. Okay, I mean, that's exactly what I expected Luke to do. Now I totally understand all of the uh, all of the criticisms toward it. I totally do. I can see that because
And like
I
I was
can
telling
see
you at the time that we had this discussion, like my quarrel was less with Luke's arc, although I can see the holes in it from another fan's perspective. I had objective issues with some of the way of the overall movie. So
right.
most of my criticisms levied were Luke's over here. I'm like, the rest of the movie kind of sucks though. Like they're just filling time when this is the real story over here.
Yeah.
If the whole movie had just been centered on that, it could have made sense. It could have been better received, but you're framing it against this slow speed chase where we've never had to talk about fuel before ever in a Star Wars film, and like they're almost out of gas. Like that's your jam. And now you're going to shoehorn in this animal rights bullshit and a character that you haven't established with any degree of like I think honestly, I think the Luke stuff would have played way better to audiences if the rest of the movie was more palatable and feasible as a story. I think that the story just is built on top of popsicle sticks that have already been chipped away at a little bit. Um, so you take this other element of the story, which has more weight to it, and everything tumbles down. I think that's probably why people have the opinion they do, because you have nothing to latch onto in that film if any one part of it feels bad to you.
Right.
It's like it's like a cancer that metastasizes throughout the whole film because everything else is made to look worse by virtue of the things that are I would almost say inarguably poorly done. You know, like the entire idea of Finn and Rose going to this other planet to do the thing that they did, that there's no reason for that. None. You make a phone call. Can you do it? Yes, I'll be right there. Simple, right? And you could have done a lot more character development in other ways and done other cool things because the whole part of the movie could have been about them finding their way onto the ship. Instead, they just find their way onto the ship in like a quick establishing shot, basically. It could have been a way cooler sequence. And all this stuff, like the whole stuttering thing Benicio del Toro does, like, what kind of choice was that? You're one of the finest actors we've ever had, and that's your choice? Please. All right. So I'm there's this pile of shit, and the flies are hitting me in the face, and the smell is hitting me, and all this stuff. And you know, they take this character that I thought was really interesting and kill him effectively, but they just kill him. They just kill him, which is fine. But I got the rest of this is a steaming pile of shit. And then over here, they're taking the one thing I thought I could latch onto. And although it's a compelling story, I've got no leg to stand on. I feel like I'm in a pile of shit. Even though I may not necessarily be in there, it feels like it in that moment. That said, I come out of the theater that day. I loved it. Upon repeated viewings, I'm kind of like, ugh, ugh.
Oh, it's definitely got
Like,
issues, but
yeah, and no hate to Rose or the actor that plays her, but that character's pointless. The only reason she's there is to give Finn something to fucking do. That's it.
it's
So
a
the only reason
oh
the
good.
reason I bring all this up is really simple. People rail on the whole thing with Luke because it hit him in the feels. And I think that entire turn, especially knowing your perspective on it, would have played a lot better if the rest of the film had given them some solid ground to stand on that wasn't covered in shit. Because the rest of the film just kind of exists. It's just there. You can tell that Ryan Johnson wanted to tell this story of this version of Luke, of a broken man who redeems himself in one story arc. I think it was a really interesting thing to do, but he just didn't seem to care about the rest of
Right.
it.
And I
I
totally,
think
that's totally valid. And I think it's weird if you, and this is kind of interesting because now we're Star Wars talk. But what's weird is it's a fault that I feel like, I mean, again, we can sit here and we can talk about how, Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars or whatever. I don't think that's the case, honestly. To me, it's definitely some issues from the very beginning, because when you get to the end, to me, even though somebody who thought Force Awakens was pretty good, I enjoyed it. Then Last Jedi, I really love, even though there's definite problems with it. There's so much about it that I love. I love Kylo Ren's story. I love the fact that the basically the second in command who looks up to Vader, he's able to pull off something that Vader never could, and that is assume power. And it was like, I can't wait for Rise of Skywalker because we're going to see Kylo Ren unleashed. We didn't get that. We got the Emperor because, we don't think that. And it's honestly to try to, it's, the whole thing is response to fan criticism, to me. I think The Last Jedi, to a huge degree, is due to the criticism of The Force Awakens. And you might say, well, what about Rian Johnson? I literally think it was like this. So The Force Awakens comes out, they look at the reviews, and people are saying it's just a rehash of New Hope. And they go, And
they aren't wrong.
Yeah. But they go, well, maybe we need to take some risks. Maybe we need to do something.
Let's go drastically different.
And they call Rian Johnson up. He's got his script in the works. And they go, oh, this is great. This is really pushing the envelope, right? And they go, they probably gave him some ideas. Now, I don't have no idea what the process was, but I feel like they loved what Ryan did so much that they gave him a trilogy before the movie even came out. Let's not forget this. They loved him so much that they said...
And you get the feeling that they kind of said, okay, we want a fresh take. This is as fresh gets in terms of an overall story arc, and I can see why they thought that.
Yep.
And he said, run with it. If you have any problems, let us know.
Yep.
But run with it.
And then 9.
And then when he's on set, he's drowning. You can tell he's drowning because he's like, he has support if he needs it, but he is so well trusted at that moment. He thought he was going to have his hand held through the whole thing, which maybe he secretly kind of wanted.
Yeah.
A little bit. You know what I mean? And so now he's just like, so now he's got to solve all these story problems that were clearly there in the script, and he just didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
I can respect that.
And then 9 was the same way. They responded to the criticism of 8.
Which is okay. I honestly think if you take what episode 9 did, but you cut it into 2 movies and just let those ideas breathe, everything would have been fine.
It could have been, yeah.
I don't think that if you like the arc of Luke in Last Jedi, I don't think you lose any of the benefit of that from what happens in 9. I don't think you lose any of it. I think that it is entirely plausible, feasible, and likely that in the serenity of the afterlife, Luke's like, yeah, I kind of went to a dark place. I didn't mean to come off like that. Like I stand by what I did, but I was wrong. I wasn't going about it in the way that I should have. I should have been a different.
Well, him coming back, him doing what he did, I think is an affirmation to that, to his mistakes.
It makes it, given what he did, on one hand, it's clearly a kind of a fuck you, Ryan move, which was satisfying on many levels. Whether you liked what happened with Luke, it's still a satisfying, like, look at what they did. That's kind of funny. But it also,
it's very meta, though. It took me out of the moment for me, but
yeah. And I think that if they had more time with it, I think all the ideas they had in 9, if it had taken more time, give me 2.5 hour movies with all these ideas.
I just love all the memes. Somehow Palpatine returned. We don't know why or how, but somehow. The whole line that Poe has in the movie. But And
Yeah.
this is something that I want to say because the I have been very critical. Wouldn't say critical. I've disagreed in a lot of cases with Mark Hamill saying that before the movie came out, because I feel like in a lot of ways he kind of planted
Tainted.
he helped to plant seeds. But at the same time, the thing is, he lived with that character for how long? I mean, 2016, so almost
Yeah.
40 years, and everyone he has known the world. Yeah, he's known the world over for being the guy that helps his friends, for being the absolute optimist. So to see him almost dismantled and then rebuilt probably was tough for him to take. But I
Yeah.
will say that while we disagree, I hope that he can see like what it means to people like me who have gone through
Well,
some crap.
and
It
and the thing is, like,
it was amazing for me.
what's awesome to me about it is that he's dealing on a personal level with seeing this character cut down,
Right.
which is exactly what the character is in fact going through. It had to have helped his performance.
Yeah.
It had to fuel all that cynicism and everything else. It's like, well, if this is what happened, I mean, I just gotta. Well, okay, then we're gonna do this. Um, so because at the end of the day, you can retcon stuff to a certain degree. Disney's not going to retcon that entire fucking movie. It's never going to happen. I've seen people talk about it, like friends of ours, and they should just erase that movie altogether and make a new episode 8. We can't now for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But
See, what's weird though is that like I don't know. I wonder to a certain extent if it's made me this, again, this new perspective I have. I wonder if it's softened me and it's made me a poorer critic in
I
a way,
disagree.
because
I disagree.
I feel like there's because I mean what I'm it's almost like it's almost giving high marks to a bad album because you like one really good song on it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from because you're saying I see the flaws of the movie, but this one, see, kind of like your argument for the film is the same as my argument against it. Whereas this one thing works for me,
But see, that's the thing.
therefore I give the rest a pass. And I say I see the validity of this choice, but it would be easier to swallow if the rest of the movie wasn't falling apart around it. So we're on very similar wavelengths
What's
here.
weird is
But I want to make a
oh, go
point
ahead.
to argue against your thought that you've been softened as a critic. I disagree. Most people are looking at the movie and the culture like this. It's right in their face. Because of your life experiences, you have been forced to pull back with a wider perspective and look at things from a different angle, a different approach, because your way of looking at the human sphere of experience is just different. Therefore, you're going to see character arcs, settings, plot twists, and plot holes alike in different ways than the person who has not who is going to that theater because he hates his job, he hates his wife, he hates his kids, and he just wants to just drown in some Star Wars for 2.5 hours and escape. And he didn't get the escape he was looking for when he went to that movie. Now he's got to go back to the bitchy wife, the screaming kids, and he's going to go back to work on Monday. And they're going to ask him if he likes Star Wars. And he's going to have to look people in the eye and say no. And he hates himself. And he hates his life. Whereas you've gone through absolute hell, and you are grateful to be alive, and you get to experience this art, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to give it a chance for what it is. And you see things in the story that other people wouldn't because they just haven't been where you've been and done what you've done. So you haven't been softened at all. If anything, you've got a broader mind, which may make it appear that you are easier on films. I just think you have the ability to filter in a different way than the average person does because you're
It's
not
definitely
going into
true.
that movie for the same thing that someone else is. Be water.
That's very, I mean, that was very well thought out. Thank you. And I
I do
appreciate
have
it.
a degree in psychology.
Well, it's one of those things that's I mean, I love that stuff, you know. It's like to me the if you can put yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment, it is amazing what you can learn not only about them but about yourself. Um but it's I don't know. The what was the dang it. There was one thing that I wanted to say and you just made a beautiful point that just eradicated it from my mind.
That's what I do.
Um
We were before that we were talking about how our perspectives are similar but different because they both rely on this anchor point of the Luke arc, and how you gave it a pass because you liked it, and I, although I understood the bold choice, it was difficult to swallow because the rest of the movie surrounding it I didn't feel held it up, and right around that is when you're like, oh,
Yeah, it was something about. I guess I think what it was what I've noticed in my. Excuse me. In my, I guess my like of movies, dislike of movies is I've realized
mm-hmm,
that I'm definitely less negative
mm-hmm,
now, and it's like when there's something that's like really. I mean, I don't know if. And I think that's where I was going was that I have no idea how I would have responded to The Last Jedi if I hadn't gone what I went through. It would have been very
but
interesting and, you know, to see that alternate universe over here where it never happened and see what that Rob thinks about it. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
I think that's crazy interesting. But I also the way that I feel now is that it's like you get to a point where you're like, I mean, just look at Twitter. Just look at open your eyes and you can see, you know, all of this negativity and you can sense it, you know, you can feel it. It's like it's and it's like you see these guys not to harp on what Billy spoke about last night very eloquently on his stream is that there are people out there that just focus on the negative and that's all they do. They don't create anything for themselves. And I mean literally for themselves, for anyone else to enjoy. They literally just create more hatred and more negativity. And I'm like, I wish I could. It's like there's a part of me that you know you want to respond with things like that from anger. You know what I mean? You get angry when you hear someone, especially like for those of you. I mean, you guys have most people have probably watched long enough to know this. Billy, I've known Billy since 1994. I mean, the guy's literally like a brother to me, and I look at him that way. I treat him that way. For me, he deserves respect. So when I see somebody say those kinds of things about him, I go, you don't know Billy. And you need to just shut your freaking pie hole, or I'm going to come over there and I'm going to. But the truth is, life's too short to be negative, man. I've seen
exactly.
the other side, and trust me, it's not that big of a deal.
And I think that kind of stuff comes from a place where there are some people that don't. I think it literally comes from a place of not knowing how to express oneself, because creativity in all forms is self-expression on
Sure.
some level in some way. And there are some people that just they have emotions inside of them, they don't know how to express them, whether it comes from nature versus nurture. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but there's people that have anger issues because they've been taught not to express, or maybe they did have a way of expressing themselves and it was squashed at an early age. So on a subconscious level, on a primal level, when they see someone else expressing themselves in a creative way, they are enraged by it because they have been denied that, and they want to tear everyone else down and feel the pain that they feel. Whether that's a conscious decision or not, I think that's one of the biggest reasons that people like that exist, is that sad thing that they can't, they either lack the ability, lack the ability to own the feeling they want to express, or something in that, somewhere in there. So I pity those people, and I just say that's very sad, and I just move on with my day most of the time. Once in a while, it'll get me. I'll be like, "You motherfucker!" But I try not to. And I think that that's a big part of that. And if you realize that these things come from a place of its own darkness, and you can have empathy for them on many levels, that negates their power, and you can move on. It doesn't make it easy to watch people that you love being attacked publicly. But again, using that justification we talked about, um, I don't really think like when someone lashes out at Billy that they're really lashing out at Billy.
Right.
They're not. They're lashing out at the idea that he's in a position to do this and they aren't.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to. Like there's a certain individual on a certain platform, and I won't give them a name, but they like to really they've made their expression is about tearing down any idea of what these guys are doing, and grasping at any little thread that they can to try and make it look bad. And that's what they do. Right or wrong, pathetic or not, that's what they do. And the irony is that they wouldn't have a need to outlet this if Billy's and Jay's thing didn't exist.
Right.
So there's this weird kind of a cycle that occurs.
You need me on that. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. Yeah, it's.
You see exactly where I was going. You can't handle the trailer.
It's weird. It's weird because you're absolutely right. There's, like I said, I think I don't know if it might be the same guy. I don't know how many of those people are out there. But I watched a video, and I think we spoke about it briefly yesterday, where he's sitting there and he's basically dogging on the trailer. And of course, when he's dogging on the trailer, he's dogging on some work that I did, right? So, of course, I'm taking everything he's saying personally, but then I backed it up a little bit. And I watch his face as he's watching the trailer. And as he's watching the trailer, he gets quiet, which means he's getting sucked in. And I'm like, so even with your eyes of negativity, you're getting pulled into the story that Billy's telling, and I think that's hilarious. So, but at the same time, you're right though. It is a place of it's a place of pain. You know, when you lash out at somebody like that, it's a place of pain. And
they lack the ability to express that pain, and they find a target and they just throw it at it.
It's crazy.
And yeah, it's a shame, but you see it so often, and to bring it back to like the whole Star Wars thing, I think a high number of those people that were lashing out against it are in the same boat, because again, they needed this to be that. Like, in other words, they didn't know how much they needed Force Awakens to be the Force Awakens, because we all did. We needed it to remind us of what was, because we have the prequels, which, whether you like some of it or not, I like most of the prequels. Like, in other words, I like each of them a little bit to varying degrees. For me, it goes in descending order. 3, 2, 1,
That's weird. Yeah.
But they're okay. Like, I'm not going to like slip my wrist, or like, I never wanted to like have George Lucas fired, but I did want him to be open to other ideas. But we wouldn't be where we are if he hadn't decided to give it another go. If he hadn't opted to retire and sell the franchise, we wouldn't have the opportunity for all the stuff that we have. So the prequels are a necessary thing. You can call them evil or not, but the point being that, I look at those, and I go, okay, those are what they are, and I can appreciate them for what they are enough to justify the rest of this stuff. That happened, and not everyone was as nice about the prequels as I was. And I would argue that they kind of sat on a shelf and they were fine until Red Letter Media comes along with their really on point critique. There's not a thing they said about the films that was incorrect. The factual points they made about what structurally made these films fail, I don't think it can be argued because they know how cinema works. They're very well schooled in it to the point where it's maddening because there's things that they'll say about movies that I love, and I'm like, well, you're not wrong. I still liked it though. So tough shit. So they kind of fuel this fire, and then the prequels seem worse than they in fact were in some ways. But we needed Force Awakens to be this beacon of hope that Star Wars isn't dead. It can be just like it was before, but with a twist. That's all it was. It was, here's your favorite cup of coffee that you had when you were the first time you had a cup of coffee. We use a different kind of sugar this time. It's still sweet, but it's going to taste just a little bit different. Because we don't want to just recreate the same thing completely. We want to give you a little new, but we want it to feel comfortable. That's what they did. And everyone was like, oh, because in the moment we were like, okay, Star Wars is going to be fine. But then you sit on it, and you're like, what shouldn't have been that? Well, motherfucker, what should it have been? What would you have been happy with? You can only make that statement because it was that. If it wasn't that, you'd be like, well, this isn't Star Wars. You can't fucking win with these people.
It was funny because the thing that I kept thinking was that, when I started reading all of the critiques, especially after 8, because it seemed like people were grumbling about Force Awakens, but they weren't angry about it until after 8. And then they started going, and you know what? 7 was blah, blah, blah. What I thought was funny was like, what do you people want? Do you want just like, it's Han, Leia, and Luke sitting at a table. And Han goes, hey, remember when I did that thing? And it was cool. And then Chewie comes in, and you said it, Chewie. That was awesome. So what do y'all want to do? What do you mean? Well, the Empire's defeated, so we're just chilling.
Luke's like, I got some blue milk.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I love Star Wars. I've said this before. I love Star Wars like I love it. It's my first memory. Empire is my first real memory. I remember the probe droids coming out and my brain clicked on and taking in that movie. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love everything Star Wars, even the bad stuff. Like Rise of Skywalker to me was, it was so disappointing, but I love parts of it. You know what I mean? I love Star Wars.
It's still Star Wars.
But
it's still Star Wars.
But you could not pay me enough money to work on the story part of Star Wars. Like if I was going to do something like script supervisor or something where I'm not in charge of the story, I would probably work on it. But you could not pay me enough to direct it. You could not pay me enough.
Because someone's going to come out and be like,
I cannot deal with that. It's like the one thing that you can't say about the 7, 8, and 9 is they don't look amazing. There's a couple of shots that are pretty bad, but for the most part, oh my God, they're amazing. Like Yoshi, the work that Yoshi did, that's so funny because, I'm looking forward to the movie. We work on Game Chasers. I get to meet Yoshi and I'm like, holy crap. Then I'm looking at the movie and I'm like, oh, that's one of my favorite. Oh, it's so beautiful. And find out that Yoshi did it. And it's like, wow, that's so cool. And then he tweeted out, hey, look, StarWars.com put out, the backgrounds for Skype and Zoom and stuff like that, right? And I go, yeah, it's funny. I downloaded that picture. And he goes, yeah, that's one of the ones I worked on. And I'm like, that's crazy that I picked the one of the only pictures that I picked. I picked 2 pictures, I think, and one of them was his shot. That's so cool.
It comes back to the point that people tend to forget that everything that's created is created by people on some level.
It's beautiful,
and they don't make that connection. That, but it comes back to something that every creator has said at least once. If you don't like what we did, there's lots of other stuff. One of my favorite quotes, and I didn't like it when I heard it first come out of his mouth, but I respected it, and I like it now. It was the director from Jason Goes to Hell, which is a big departure from the series. And the opening of the film, to me, is worth the price of admission. In the first 15 minutes of the film, Jason explodes in fantastic fashion. Spoilers. And the rest of the film is spent with them explaining that Jason was the vessel of this more overarching evil that is now making its way from person to person, trying to do what it wants to do. But it really likes the form of Jason and wants to find its way back. So that's the entire MacGuffin of the story. And he said, look, we try to do something very different to breathe new life into the series, to try and keep from being the same old thing over and over again. And people tell me they didn't like that it strayed too far, and maybe it did. But here's the thing: if you want to see Jason in some version prior to this movie, there's at least 6 other movies plus 2 other ones where you can see that. Like, they made that movie 6, 7, 8 times. This movie doesn't erase those movies. They're still there, and they're no less valid because of what we did with this one. And I'm like, and you're like, shit, he's right. The fact that a band you love puts out an album you don't like, the albums you liked before are still good.
You know,
like people in relationships, you be married once in a while, the sex isn't going to be that good. Once in a while, you're just not feeling it. Whatever. That doesn't mean you don't love that person. Doesn't mean that the other sex you've had isn't amazing. Doesn't mean you'll never have amazing sex again. Like, the love affair is still there. But get over this one bad thing that happened. It's okay. It'll be better.
it's funny too because I think one of the big turning points for me, and this was because I think that, again, this whole positive outlook on movies and music and all kinds of stuff, TV shows, even Lost. I mean, Lost is one of the, to me, the final season of Lost is one of, I mean, it seriously was disappointing to me. Especially when oh yeah, they were just the thing, and it was okay. All right.
I told you the story about that, right?
With what?
Lost. So I made it a point around the time that that Lost began happening. I was like, I'm not going to get into the show. I'm going to wait until the show is finished and then decide if I want to go back and watch it. Because at this point in history, that is now a thing that you can actually do. It wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
We grew up in a generation where you either latched onto it and you got to see it, and then it went away. You never got to see it again. Well, by that point, by the mid 2000s, late aughts, things were getting released on DVD. You could always go back and experience shit. And the first series that I really experienced that with was like House as well, where I started liking it and I had to go back and watch the rest of it. With Lost, I said, I don't care. And I was like, hey, you watch Lost? Nope. You don't watch Lost? Nope. I remember it vividly. I was working in an office. I was in the break room. It was the morning after the Lost season finale. Person after person coming with this long look on their face. They're grumpy, they're sad, they're just moving a little bit slower. And finally I go, what's going on? I know this is going to sound silly, but man, the Lost series finale was on last night. Like, oh yeah? How was it? It was horrible. I wasted the last however many years of my life on this show. And I'm like, so I don't watch it. And I've never seen an episode of Lost, and I won't. Because I'm like, same thing with Firefly. I've seen 2 episodes of it, and that was only because I was offered sex in exchange. Okay? Because I know how this ends. It ends with disappointment. I don't need that. I don't need to subject myself to this little good slice of art because there's no ending. Like, the thing with Star Wars is like each of the trilogies, like, they have beginnings, middles, and ends, and you can pick and choose stuff and everything's fine. But like with serial television, you want a story to have a satisfying ending for these characters that you latch onto for all this other good stuff. And if that's not there, I ain't watching it. Battlestar Galactica came and went. I heard it was amazing, and I was like, bet. So in 2010, I binge watched the whole thing over the course of like 2 weeks or something, and no regrets. Amazing show. I want more. Started watching Caprica. It didn't grab me, but I was fine. It's okay.
Well, I'll tell
But
you,
like that's the thing. Like
Lost was the big, because I was the same way as those people. Can't believe I wasted, same thing. Can't believe I wasted all that time. But then I sort of had, I guess, like a bit of an epiphany, because I realized that even if that final season, because I shouldn't even see the final season, it's really the last 2 episodes that went in a direction that I didn't want them to go in, basically. I'm not going to give it away, but just in case somebody does want to watch this, because you might want to watch it after I say this, it was the absolute, some of the best television I've ever seen, and I loved the journey. The journey was worth it. Even though I didn't like the end. I didn't,
I would argue you could spoil the end right now, and it doesn't change the fact that these characters have some great development in them.
Oh my God.
So people get stuck on an island for however many years, and there's all these twists and turns and all this world building and all these different possibilities of what could happen. And because they ran out of ideas, ran out of time, ran out of money, spoilers, they're in purgatory. That was the big thing. And all these different plot threads are never explained. And you're like,
well, there are things.
Watch the whole series except for the last 2.
There are things that are.
And make your own ideas.
Wait, Octavia said, Rob, who hosted last night's video with Jay Jim? Last night's video. I'm not sure what you mean, Octavius. Please explain. But anyway, I love it because one of the things that I loved about the show is that the very beginning of the show would, it basically tells you who the episode is going to be about or who the episode's going to focus on. And there were so many times when I'd go, oh man, I don't want them to. Seriously, I got to sit through a whole hour of this. I waited a week. I set aside time.
Of this person, yeah.
And then about 20 minutes in, I'm like, I love this. The writing in that show is insanely good. And I don't think that they ran out of time. I think they just said, you know what? We've got to end this because we can't. We've been holding on to these secrets for that's how it read to me. Now, I mean, I could be completely wrong. Lindelof and Carlton Cuse might come out, someday and say exactly what it was. But that's where the Lindelof hate really started. And then what's funny is, people give him a lot of crap for Prometheus when the reality is Ridley Scott was going, no, I want this in there. So if you don't like Prometheus, it's not Lindelof's fault. Lindelof helped write it, sure. And he added some things, sure. But the things that a lot of people hate about it, ugh. Video of Billy and Last Jedi, was it this week?
There's a video of Billy talking about Last Jedi with Jay and Melvor. They recorded that right
the night of. Yeah, they got home and recorded it, and they hated it.
Yeah,
boy, they ripped into it. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know.
There's a game. It's on the Game Chasers.
Yes, the Game Chasers. In fact, I don't know where I typed that, but okay. There you go. There's a link to the Game Chasers if you want to go check them out. There you go. In fact,
and they've got them for all 3 of the new trilogy, and whether you agree with them or not, it's compelling.
It's fun. It is fun.
Melvor has an interesting perspective a lot.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't ever know where he's going to come from because the stuff that he rails against, I'm like, really, that bothers you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will also say,
valid.
I want to announce or just remind everyone that anybody that's been on this show, Jim, Billy, Jay, Eric, whatever, exclamation point and their name, and there is a Nightbot, basically a link to either their Twitch or their YouTube or whatever. You can click you can do !movie, and it'll give you the Indiegogo. So if you want to support the movie, you can do that. All of that is in there, and it will stay there, and I'll keep adding to it the more guests that we have. So everybody's on there. So
That's right.
and Jim, since it's today, you are on the Orange Block. God, yes, I need to put that in there. But yes, yes, everybody's in there, so it's kind of nice. And on the current show, it pulls up Jim's. So if you put !Jim, it'll pull up his information as well. But really, Lost is one of the ones that I'm talking about. The other one was Under the Dome, the big, crazy Stephen King tome of Under the Dome. That book ends with a... Really? That's the ending you came up with, Mr. I sell all these books? And but then I had to go, you know what? I read that book like it was on fire and I was running out of time. I loved reading that book. So that and Lost. Yes, The Mist is another one where I love the story of that, by the way. And I'll do you know the story of The Mist? Yeah, I love it. But anyway, I'm telling you, it's such a great book. It just ends poorly. But I enjoyed loving it. I enjoyed reading it, and I love it because of that. And Lost is another one that kind of gave me that whole thing. But I love the fact that with The Mist, that it was an ending that Stephen King, he told Frank Darabont, who of course did Green Mile and Shawshank, he told him, he said, that wasn't my ending, but I wish I'd thought of it because that's a better ending than what I gave it. And I thought that was awesome. Dexter. See, I haven't seen Dexter at all. I hear there's a lot of people that don't like the ending, and that's why I hadn't watched it.
And yeah, we could sit here.
Breaking Bad, though.
We could leave the... I barely made it past the second season.
Really? Oh, yeah. God, I love that.
It's good. I love it. But again, it comes down to investment of time. But I can also make the argument that, and I've told this to you on a personal level, like I tend to comfort food when it comes to entertainment. I'll watch the same shit over and over and over again. And because if you can name an emotion, a vibe, I've got media for all that stuff covered. And something has to, it's just, with music, I'm even more of a bastard. Because with music, you got about you've got maybe 8 seconds to get my attention. Boop, nope. And especially if your band was formed after the year 2000, like, stand by, because I've heard it all. And you better be doing something with intense passion or something that grabs my attention. And same with film and TV and all this other stuff. Like today. So today, Rob and I hung out for the second afternoon in a row, just kind of hanging out, watching some old stuff. And today I got up earlier than I expected to, and I was killing time until he was around. And I decided to start watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I've never seen it before. I love Larry David. I'll start watching it. It's good. There are points where you have that horrible, for the for his character, and you're just like, oh my, really? You get into a fist fight with a fat chick over an elevator? That's fine. This is the choice you made, Lair. That's cool, But it's fun to watch. Am I gonna make it through the whole series? Eventually, maybe not. But with that kind of humor, that kind of storytelling, you don't have to have an ending to it. The Office is like that.
I was gonna say you just recently were watching it at the same time I was for the first time.
And Red Dwarf is like that too, where you don't like there are story threads in that series that you want to see resolved, but you don't have to. Night Court was like that, and there's a lot of shows where you could just take one episode, 2 episodes, find it. Even Star Trek to a certain degree. You just enjoy it for what it is. So I like shows that are not as serialized as so many other things are. Like ER and Law and Order, I used to love those shows. They got ruined for me in my first marriage because it seemed like TNT was always on in that house all the time. And Godzilla, bless her, like she liked those shows. She know that I liked them too. But it's like, okay, I've had enough. I see a question in chat. I have a lot of metal bands you have never heard of. That's a bold statement, and I would caution you against saying that. My nickname in the 90s and the early part of this century was the Metal Encyclopedia. I was in the industry for over 10 years. I know a lot of bands personally. I know of a lot of bands because. So, are there things you probably could bring up that I don't know? Sure. By definition, probably not something I care to know about because I'm that picky. However, I appreciate the thought. And I don't mean that to come off as arrogant, but I know it just did, and I apologize. But anyway.
He knows what he likes.
That's right. But like, we could go on for eons. This could splinter into a million different places. But I think it comes back to what we were originally saying. We started off talking about the risks involved with bringing back something that is beloved and cherished and not wanting to tarnish what that was. But there being hope because the people that are invested in it have passion for that project. And really just expanded that idea throughout the entire course of the last 2.5 hours. And
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, be water. Enjoy it, don't enjoy it. But be water. I'll be water.
I don't know if there's a better ending than that. In fact, it's time I have to eat some dinner, guys. But and I know that you've wasted way too much of your time on me today. So
no, I've enjoyed it.
I appreciate it. I really do. Because I mean, I really enjoyed the last. Seriously, it was like one of the things that I love is I love seeing, it's almost like it's like I was telling Christine, it's almost like a how did we get here kind of thing. And that's one of those things that I like seeing the steps and the baby steps that get you to a certain point. So, but guys, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and call it then. Because, wow, I'm actually kind of tired. I'm actually like, I think laying my story out there it's kind of scary, but therapeutic in a way. But go ahead.
You had a rock that you were carrying, and you put it down for a little while.
Yeah.
And as soon as you put it down, your body's like, wait a minute, leave it down there for a bit. We're tired.
Yeah. Yeah. 3:25 in Denmark. Well, Bubbles, thank you for hanging with us. Because wow, that's pretty late. But
true story. Appreciate it.
But thank you again for watching. Again, you can find Jim over at Grindhead Jim. You got anything else you want to plug or anything like that?
I mean, if you play Destiny at all, I've been doing a lot of remixes of the trailers lately. Go to my Twitter, check them out.
Yeah. So grindheadjim.com, you can see all the links to all the things because the man is he's everywhere. You're kind of everywhere. So
it's a true story.
And of course, we'll be back on Saturday with the show. I'm not exactly sure when, but hopefully we will get we will get Rudy on. And he can talk about his experience being an assistant director and a bunch of other things. Writer, editor. He's done a lot of stuff too. So very interesting. Hope to see you guys next time. Thanks a lot for watching and bye.
Cheers, guys.